Ladies and gentlemen, we will be just letting our participants arrive in for 1 minute or so, and then we will start playing our LGMA Paris Agreement 5th anniversary video, and then we will kick off the webinar. Thanks for your attendance and patience. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability. I'm also acting as the focal point of the local governments and municipal authorities constituency to the UNFCCC. It's the network accredited to UNFCCC, but also in a broader sense, we're also connected to many national and regional and global local and regional government networks across the world who are following the climate agenda. Today, we will be having our 19th monthly webinar. This is repeated every month around the 3rd or 4th week. We usually take around 60 minutes of our time, and this webinar is repeated in twice, the 10 a.m. at the European Central Time, and also 4 p.m. again at the Central European Summer Time. During these webinars, we make a recording of our discussions. We also make this available later on, and we also make available the presentation that we are using. During the presentations and discussions, there will be moments of Q&A, but and we will try to encourage interactivity, of course, but especially during the flow of the sessions, you can type in any emerging or burning questions in the QA box or chat box. As we have mentioned, every month we are having obviously a spatial agenda. For this year, today, we will have two dedicated focus. The first one in this session, we will be focusing on the interrelations or updates on the 2021 UN conferences on climate, energy, and food. So I will take the charge of presenting the updates on climate conference, and my colleagues Rohit Sen and Peter De Franceschi will be giving you updates on energy and food conferences respectively. You can already see my colleague Peter I guess, from the screen. So he's joining us. I'd like to thank both of them for their time and availability and sharing their inputs for us. I don't see Rohit yet, but I hope he will be joining us soon. In the afternoon session, we will focus this time, again, we will follow the updates on climate conference, COP26, but we will try to have some more discussions with our colleagues from the UK, especially networks of local and regional governments and cities and regions. As a snapshot, obviously, it's not impossible to share all these or give floor in limited time, but we wanted to particularly focus on the networks who are leading the work, but also the City of Glasgow and Scottish Government, who are the host, together with the UK government, to do the climate COP. So at 4 p.m. In the afternoon in European time, you're also more than welcome to join us so that we follow this. As we said, this time, because of the very interesting topics and our guests, we may be a bit more extended from our time zones, the time span. So we may extend until 90 minutes, but we will also try to cut it short. We hope you can all join us until the end of the session. I just noticed my colleague Rohit also joined us, so that's all good. All our panelists are online. So before going to the details, you may have seen at the beginning, those who were with us at the beginning of this webinar, we played a video. This was prepared in celebration of the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement from the local governments and municipal authority perspective. We have a dedicated YouTube list where other networks are also provided their own contributions, so you can download or you can watch those videos. Meanwhile, all the other webinars in the past has also been available in our channel on the YouTube. We are also trying to make sure the progress on the COP26 and other UNFCCC processes are available in the past as well, and ongoing processes in our website. citiesandregions.org/COP26 is our, let's say, landing zone for our LGMA advocacy. In our webinar today, I will try to continue in the next 10 minutes or so to the extent possible. In that part, I will try to focus on the politics and the substance or say thematic discussions on the COP26. Then I will give the floor to Rohit and Peter respectively. After we finish, each of them will provide 5 to 7 minutes of an update, and after both of their presentation, we will open the floor for Q&A for their thematic presentations. And after their finishing of their session, I would like to continue with our COP26 logistics, because that's also an important agenda. But in order to give enough time for our guests, I think it will be good for us to first listen to them. And I also believe a connection to the COP26 political priorities and outcomes and expectations, and the connection to energy and food summit is also very important before or beyond the logistics of COP26, which is still in the making, which is still a lot of rooms to improve, therefore nothing to be missed. So without further ado, for those who have been attending our webinars, we usually take ourselves through the priorities or why Paris Agreement is important, some basics about governance, and then we keep updates on what has happened in the past. So a very short, let's say, introduction why Paris Agreement is so important, because it's a new era in global climate action. It is a universal commitment by all national governments, but it also says that we acknowledge multi-level and multi-stakeholder engagement. There is a concrete goal on 1.5 degree goal to keep it around this below 2 degrees and well towards 1.5 degree goal. And there's also a specific commitment to reach climate neutrality by mid-century. The national governments obviously are the ones who signed this, and they have the prime responsibility for the implementation of the Paris Agreement. However, we are aware the first climate plans, the first national climate plans, which are called national determined contributions, none of them are fit for Paris Agreement. And it is very basic, because all these plans were prepared before Paris Agreement was adopted. It was prepared on the way to Paris in 2015. Therefore, every nation has to refresh, renew, and submit a second or third or whatever fourth national determined contributions before COP26. Therefore, the real success of Paris Agreement starts at home. Whatever will happen in physical or virtual in COP, but it doesn't matter. The most important point is that every nation should complete their NDCs, and we are having good progress in some of them. So that's the good news. for local and regional governments, as we said, before Paris Agreement, what we were acting on climate change, but these were all voluntary. There is a specific preamble or paragraph in the Paris Agreement which recognizes the importance of engagement of all levels of government. Our interpretation is that this gives us a mandate to deliver Paris Agreement at home, at the local level. Therefore, every council, every administration, every parliament at the local and regional level should endorse Paris Agreement and start preparing their climate neutrality and 1.5 compatible development plans. So that is our now duty. It's not anymore a voluntary action. Therefore, it's essential that all of us are committed to those goals. And of course, because climate neutrality, because 1.5 degree goals is beyond any one single institution, there is definitely a need for engagement of all stakeholders. We have seen the benefit of citizen action in 2019 and onwards, but the most important thing is that the new era should also be offering prosperity for all society, especially those who were being disadvantaged in the past with the fossil era. So the benefits of a new technology, new modalities should be shared by all, so that it is inclusive and everybody contributes to these efforts. Climate conferences, COPs, are cyclic. As you have seen, it is the 26th time every year it takes place. So the conference, which was hosted a year before or at the end of the year, political representatives are the presidents, so they are the ones who take responsibility in the implementation of the decisions. Usually it is the ministers of environment. There are other responsibles are assigned. Ministers of foreign affairs or prime ministers were also time to time presidents of the COPs. Since Paris Agreement, we have a new title or new mandate, high-level climate action champions. In Chilean case, this is Gonzalo, and Chilean Minister of Environment is still the COP25 president. They are the longest serving president because of the COVID delays. Now, the incoming presidency is UK. President designate is Alok Sharma. He's 100% and fully dedicating his time for COP business, but he's still member of the government and cabinet of the UK, which is also good. In addition to high-level climate action champion, UK has been striving to make sure this is the most inclusive COP, and they are introducing new mechanisms. For example, they have assigned a number of additional advisors or ambassadors. In addition to Nigel Topping, who is not the counterpart to Gonzalo Munoz, we have finance, adaptation advisors, and regional ambassadors for each continent in the world. We also have Sir David Attenborough as the people's advocate. Of course, it is a bit different than a mandate from the presidency, so he will very likely have something much more independent, but we'll see how it will be implemented. The priorities, the UK government has also advanced over this time. Now they are focusing on 4 topics: mitigation, adaptation, finance, and the last one, which is revised collaboration, is the most important one, because we were saying that we would like to have a multi-level action COP at COP26. So we are, I think, in the good track for achieving these goals. The UK government has dedicated or created several engagement channels that now we can see the full list of that. In some of them, we are very actively involved, in some not. And we are encouraging the UK presidency to make all these progresses of those bodies available so that we could have much more information about what was being discussed within these groups and how they are providing support to the UK presidency. Traditionally, before pandemic, we were having this monthly, every mid-year with engagement in the bond and other thematic workshops. But now we're in a virtual advocacy mode. So we have still workshops, the technical meetings on the UNFCCC bodies. The presidency is having several consultations on a monthly basis with heads of delegations. They are having ministerial meetings, and some of them they are receiving inputs from us, or some of them they are inviting their respected or their preferred stakeholders to intervene. And especially through the Marrakesh Partnership and high-level climate action champions, there's a third track, which is the Race to Zero, Race to Resilience. Cities and regions are very actively involved in both of them. We have climate action pathways in a number of areas, including human settlements, and we have Race to Zero breakthroughs. These are the new additional points that we hope NDCs and the climate community will embrace when they come to COP26. It's a 12 or 13 days of mobilization at COP. The UK presidency earlier this month has released their topical priorities for every day. This is in addition to the negotiation agendas. You can see the diversity of the themes, and each day has a special reason why that they allocate for this type of themes. For example, Friday is to engage with the Fridays for Future, or energy is trying to be connected immediately, and finance immediately connected to after the Leaders Summit, and the second week starting with adaptation, loss and damage. The cities and regions and built environment will be discussed on the Thursday in the second week. We will come back to that in terms of logistical planning, but that's the schedule as of today. And how we were preparing as LGMA, as local governments, we said that we have 4 main blocks. First, localizing of Paris Agreement, especially in committing more to our emission reductions and adaptation planning, and Race to Zero and Race to Resilience was excellent tools for us. We also would like to have vertical NDCs, so that is also coming up in shape. NDCP CAIP and numerous mechanisms shape that. Second, independent from Paris Agreement, we want to act on all areas of climate, and we want to introduce new topics like circular, food, nature, in addition to mobility, buildings, and renewables, all these topics. We want to expand the discussion so that we would like to connect, for example, urbanization ministerials to the COP, or we'd like to connect more with the culture community to the climate action community, and we'd like to focus on climate justice and social equity. And throughout the year, now that COP has become much more concrete, we have been engaging in summits and then other processes. We had achieved significant achievements on all these areas, especially in the 22nd of April. We have some game changers with the NDC from the US, commitments from US and Japan, and numerous other announcements like Korea has become a key factor. On the biodiversity front, we have Edinburgh process being acknowledged as a concrete, let's say, second decade of action at the biodiversity area, which will shape us hopefully as positive feedbacks. And UN Habitat, the leading UN agency on urbanization, is also very active on climate, and they're also supporting the idea of a climate urbanization. With this, we would like to now, from 7 areas, we would like to encourage that we focus on 4 main outcome-oriented priorities as the COP26 for LGMA. First change is that it's not anymore towards, it is time for multi-level action, that we would like to suggest that we have 4 main outcomes, making sure there's a new normal of multi-level in all NDCs and all commitments, that urbanization becomes a sector, especially on action and finance, and in finance, both market and non-market mechanisms. Then we would like to encourage that all our actions are inclusive, just, holistic, and nature-friendly, that and encompasses all topics. And from COP26 onwards, because we have a second phase of agreement, the UNFCCC engagement of LGMA constituents should be much more robust, so that we have much more specified, customized, and dedicated working groups within LGMA, so that we follow the daily agendas appropriately. My last slide for this round, before I give the floor to Rohit and Peter, is that last month, since the last webinar, we had achieved a number of important let's say updates. Let's recall them immediately, just for highlights. First, Human Settlements Action Pathway 2.0 is released. G20 met, the climate and environment ministers had 3 different outcome documents. There was a July ministerial of COP26 hosted in London. UK 100, one of the leaders of the LGMA in the UK, has released an important communique. We'll hear it in the afternoon, especially. UN Food Systems had convened a pre-summit. COP26 president finally announced their first logistical planning, and we will touch on this. As of today, we also heard about the vaccination plans, but for us, as far as we know, there's very little progress on that. We will hear it on that. And the national level in Brazil, a number of cities, states, and business have committed to Race to Zero. We heard Dominican Republic, all the cities in the Dominican Republic, like Japan, like Korea, have committed to net zero, which is excellent news. IPCC released their first assessment report, working group 1 report, which was an alarm bell, and it was probably the last resort for us to make sure the meaningful outcome for COP26. And finally, the biodiversity COP, which is another Rio Convention, has formally announced that it will be in a hybrid format in October. Originally, it was planned for 2 weeks this year, so if they shrinked it to 1 week, they are in a hybrid format. So official opening will be done with the delegations based in China, and all the other delegations will interact virtually. including local and regional government and other stakeholders. There will be very few side events or virtual elements. And there will be a declaration coming up, and the continuity of the negotiations will be held next year through in-person meetings as well, which we believe it's important because that also could be setting some precedent to the ongoing plan for COP26. Finally, yes, now with this, I'd like to give a break to my session or my slot. I am checking whether there's any input to chat and Q&A. Nothing for the moment. That's good. At least we can immediately start with our discussion with our colleagues. I'm now inviting first my colleague Rohit Sen. I would like to start with the Energy Summit, because you all remember, or you're all aware, the emission reductions, ambitious transformation, 1.5 degree goals cannot be achieved without full decarbonization of our energy systems and making it decentralized and making it much more, let's say, people-centered and much more environment and sustainability friendly. We will continue with Peter, but before I give the floor, I'd like to invite them. Of course, they will have their own presentations, very likely. But I think the relevant for us would be, let's try to understand what is unique of these conferences, both in terms of their structure and the mission, and then how we can hear how local and regional governments have been engaged. You have heard in the climate process, but in their mechanism, there were some different unique modalities. And finally, what will be achieved out of this, and because this will be just a couple of weeks before COP, we are talking about 23rd and 24th of September for this summit, how we can use the outcomes to make sure COP26 is producing ambitious outcomes that we're all looking for. With this, Rohit, I hope you are with us. I would be happy if you can turn on your camera. Perfect. Rohit is the head of ICLEI's Climate and Energy Action at the World Secretariat. I'm proud to be and very, very honored to, and privileged to be working with him. Rohit has been following the process. Rohit, without further ado, feel free, if you want to share any of your screen, feel free to use it. We can combine our presentations later on, but you can also continue verbally. Thank you, Rohit, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yunus, and good morning to you all. Yunus, if you could allow me to share my screen, because it says at the moment I cannot share my screen.
I hope you can do it now. Just look at your button. I stopped sharing my screen.
Yeah, now I can. Thank you.
Perfect.
So, okay. I think I have to do that again. All right, you can see my screen now, right? Perfect. So thank you very much, Yunus. And I just wanted to quickly update everybody a bit on the background and what's happening also at ICLEI's front with respect to the UN high-level dialogue on energy and the energy compact linked with it. So a bit of the background where we see that the UN high-level dialogue on energy was basically announced by UN Secretary General that they are aiming to have this dialogue on 24th of September at the UN General Assembly, where they are looking at a series of leadership dialogues, which are featuring heads of states and governments, global leaders, and who are also announcing commitments in the form of energy compacts. And these energy compacts will be aimed at achieving clean, affordable energy for all, which is focusing on SDG 7 by 2030, and also at net zero emissions by 2050. I have shared the more detailed, for more details on the website, and I've put the link here as well for energy compacts. But at the same time, the dialogue will also result in a global roadmap towards achievement of SDG 7 by 2030 and the net zero emissions by 2050, which will be built upon not only based on this dialogue, but also on the ministerial thematic forums and also from the reports from the technical working group. Please note there are technical working groups, which I have in my slide. Next slide, which is 5 of them focusing on energy access, energy transition, enabling SDGs through inclusive and just transition, innovation, technology and data, and finance investment. Now, this focuses with the energy compacts that I was talking about, which are basically voluntary commitments to drive more ambitious and bolder actions toward SDG 7. So where we are looking at these voluntary commitments coming from the governments, this includes national, subnational, local governments, businesses from private sectors and so on, from civil societies, from international organizations, and other multi-stakeholders, including youth and academia. No? And we see that these energy compacts will focus and link towards the various NDCs, the SDGs in SDG 7 in focus, and also various energy transition plans. Now, here is where organizations like ICLEI come in with various cities and regions network that we have and who are committing to various ambitious targets with focus on energy, renewable energy, and so on, linked with Race to Zero, linked with 100% renewables, and so many other activities. And there we decided that ICLEI would submit an energy compact focusing on 100% renewables. And we have in fact submitted this compact at the moment, which is under the approval process. And once this is approved, we will try to mobilize cities who are part of the ICLEI network, part of the 100% renewables cities and regions network, and see how this energy compact will be launched and more mobilization and will be done from the UN energy side as well during the UN high-level dialogue on energy compact. So as you see that this clearly links to how it links to the NDCs, how it links to the SDGs, and therefore directly has a link and impact on how the energy transition plans and all these dialogues shape up to impact the discussions and dialogues at COP in the following month. You know? So therefore, we welcome all subnational governments, cities, towns, and regions committed or implementing 100% RE targets to become a part of this energy compact by ICLEI. And I would stop here because I don't want to go much deeper, rather have any questions that you want to ask regarding this and see if we can have a discussion on that. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, Rohit. It would be good if you can stay for a couple of minutes. My first, let's say, building on the first three questions in the introduction I just highlighted, maybe if I can now extract my understanding from your presentation. First of all, we have to know that there is no COP for energy. And this is in fact the second dialogue, and the first one was 40 years ago in 1981. So therefore, let's also recall climate is a result, not the main, let's say, driver. If you cannot change your energy systems, you cannot change your climate. So it is good that UN at the highest level is prioritizing this, and it's a welcome overall. But let's remember, it will not have a continuous process like the climate COPs. Therefore, any outcome is essential that, as you have mentioned, NDCs and other national plans like SDGs. The second point, relevance to us, it's good that ICLEI is submitting, but we are also aware a number of networks are also working on it. During the thematic dialogues, the global task force contributions were coordinated by UCLG. There were a number of speakers in July sessions from ICLEI, UCLG, C40. We are aware a number of energy compacts are coming up from networks. I know some of our colleagues are here. They may also intervene if needed. And third, I think, once again, it's connected to the first one, if we can say energy transition is happening, and if we can say that that's the highest level, it will be much easier to convince NDCs to be more ambitious. Therefore, it's essential to achieve success. It is much easier for accelerating Race to Zero and all other processes. So I think that was good. So the date was 24th of September, correct, Rohit? And the modalities, I think, is still being shaped. I just heard it will be virtual. Speakers, I think it's still in the making. So we will be in touch. Once again, UCLG, the Global Task Force Coordinator, we will be sharing more updates on how we will be engaged in that. So with this now, let's switch. Sure, please.
Just may answer one of the points that you mentioned, whether this will be an annual thing or not. So the high-level dialogue might not be the same next year, but they might take a different shape. But the energy compacts is an annual thing, and there will be annual reporting on the progress made by the people who are committing to this compact, and therefore there will be an annual update on these things. And at this, as this completely links with the SDGs and NDCs, which are also part of the climate COP, so I completely clearly see a direct link with the energy compacts.
Excellent. Excellent. So Rohit will stay with us. As I said, I would encourage all my colleagues joining this call if there is any updates from their side. Yesterday, I was, for example, in a webinar of Google 24/7 Carbon Free World Coalition. There's another action, call to action. So there will be a number of things coming out. So and so while Peter is starting his session, you can also type in if needed your contribution, and we can give you the floor also for speakers. So I'm now delighted to welcome my colleague Peter from Brussels office of ICLE, head of the Brussels office, but in particular in this discussion, he is leading our global food program. So Peter, how would you summarize what's going on in the Food System Summit based on the guidance questions I've raised, but you can also feel free to share as you wish. If you want, you can also share your screen and show your slides. So the floor is yours. Once again, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much, Yunus. It's a pleasure to talk to you all. So hello, everybody. Indeed, the first answer would be it's a journey, like always. And coming from the Italian Alps, I must say it's quite a hell of a journey with ups and downs. As you know, the UN Food System Summit will take place in New York on September 23rd and is setting the stage for a global food system transformation to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. But it's not only this date. When I talk about the journey, it means that all of us city networks and partners have been in this journey for more than 6 months now. And what makes this event unique and this process, on one hand, as you know, we all eat, food is unique, connects, it is linked to many of the problems that we have, biodiversity loss, climate, health, but also to many solutions. So I think in that sense, it's really a cross-cutting issue. And we have been involved in the process right from the beginning, trying to submit the so-called game-changing solutions, particularly on school food nutrition. But it's also true that the conference and process itself is it's quite a particular one. As you know, there's no hiding of quite some concerns about it, even boycotts. But from our side, our entry point has always been it's too important for cities and city networks not to engage. Our entry point has been that, as you know, I don't have to tell you that more than most of us humans live in cities. More than 70% of food is eaten in cities, a lot of wasted in cities. So it's clear for us that the road to sustainable, healthy food systems leads through the cities in this world. And this has also been recognized by the organizer and leaders of this process of the UN Food System Summit throughout the journey. Now, what should be these outcomes of the UN Food System Summit? On one hand, a statement of action, which means a positive vision on what are sustainable and healthy food systems. Then commitments of local, regional, and national governments, particularly national governments. And then there will be, as it stands now, around 8 coalitions that have been formed to some extent already in the past, but particularly in view of the outcome. And these are coalitions that are typically with several national governments on board and the key stakeholders. One of them is, for instance, the global coalition led by the World Food Programme on school nutrition, education, healthy food, where ICLE is also part. Now, what has been the involvement of local governments and of us city representatives in this process? As I said, we started early together with UN organizations, for instance, UN Nutrition, FAO, to push, for instance, for one on school food, on procurement, because as you know, in many cities, it's the cities who have the mandate to ensure that there's a healthy, good food in schools, and particularly COVID showed the impact of not having food anymore in schools, and in some cases, one healthy warm meal a day. But then we quickly became part of this urban food system working group, which is co-led by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. It grew, this urban food system working group grew into a big working group of 26 UN and civil society organizations. Some of them are also here represented, UCLG, C40, just to mention a few, UN Habitat, and obviously on food, also the Milano Urban Food Policy Pact. So with this working group, we discuss regularly how can we engage in the process. And ICLE, particularly together with the FAO, in 26 cities around the globe, we organized independent dialogues. I think that's also an interesting result, that it's not just about this unique event, it's about independent dialogues happening all around the globe, at the civil society level, at the city level, at other partners levels, to discuss what is sustainable, healthy food systems, who are the stakeholders. And it's clear, it's cross-cutting, it's multi-actor, it needs systemic change. So, you know, we led around 19 dialogues in these 26 cities, and more than 1,000 participants participated. It was quite an interesting journey. Loads of dialogues happened in Africa, and in 16 cities, from Tunis, all the mighty continent down till Cape Town. We had these dialogues, and very vibrant. And all these results of these dialogues fed in and are feeding in this process. We also proposed, together with the partners of the working group, game-changing solutions, particularly on local food systems. As you know, local food systems is not just about ensuring healthy food in schools, it's also about the food markets, the access to markets, the access to healthy food, which is a critical one. How can mayors, local governments really ensure healthy food landscapes, and how to make them attractive, how to deal with food poverty, agriculture around it, if there is agriculture. So it's a lot of interesting discussion, and with amazing people that we had. And in the UN Food Systems Summit, there is also this structure of food system champions. Milan is one of them. And we nominated Copenhagen, Izmir, and Kelimani, our members, successfully. So they are also food system champions. And so it's been a lot of meetings feeding in, also on behalf of this working group of urban food system. I had the pleasure once to talk at the Global Dialogue, presenting all these messages of our partners of this working group to a big audience. And later at the pre-summit in July, I had the pleasure again to speak on behalf of the working group and to express a call for action to form a coalition of cities on food systems. And let's see how it goes. And what's next? Very shortly. So there are currently 8 coalitions. We are still seeing and exploring together with FAO and within the working group how to push further a coalition on cities. But it's clear it's a journey. It's an ongoing process. We don't think we will probably engage at the Food System Summit itself, because it will be a virtual event with no side events. But we will be there. But most likely, or surely, since it's a process, it will go beyond the Food System Summit. So there is a side event on mid of October of the Committee on World Food Security, which is an essential platform for inclusive international intergovernmental platform, let's say, of stakeholders around food. Then there will be the COP, obviously, which is also linked, and we have been involved as ICLE and with other partners on the drafting since the beginning of the Glasgow Declaration on Climate and Food. And then there is the Nutrition for Growth Summit at the end of the year in Tokyo. So it's an ongoing process, but it's clear for us that we have to be involved, and having cities on board is key because of the reasons that I mentioned. I think that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, for your updates and then also your work in leading this process on behalf of ICLE, but also with a global broad coalition. We are very happy to see this, the voice, the unified voice of cities and cities and regions and their networks are represented powerfully at all UN platforms. I think we have been absorbing the benefit of this in all processes in SDGs, in the Habitat Agenda, climate, biodiversity. So we're happy that just like energy, nature also, and food is also continuing this practice. This is first point I just immediately have an understanding. Second, of course, we were saying that there's no UN as an energy COP, but there is a food and agriculture organization, as you mentioned, which already offered a new program for cities, but it was food and agriculture, so it was traditional thinking. So for me, that it is a food system summit is really valuable, that it is introducing a new way of thinking, and that is exactly what we want to achieve with this new 1.5 degrees lifestyles, that everything we have to think about is has to introduce or lead into a systems change so that there is a better way of producing and consuming our products or the requirements. And I think the Champions Network and all these things, I was part of the session hosted by Izmir. I was very happy to see all these dynamics. And again, connected to this, in the Marrakesh Partnership, we have a human settlements action pathway. It was waste and consumption is one of those subgroups, and there is also a reference to food waste, so that in fact we at the city level, as you mentioned, Milan has started this very early, so that we once again have been a game changer as such, so that we have been participating in these efforts and leading as such. The cities and regions are also shaping this discussion. Therefore, we commend all these champions, all these networks. I'm now showing, while talking, the agenda of the COP, where you see, for example, as Rohit mentioned, there is a discussion on energy, and there will be, you don't see food, but you see nature, and we know in the afternoon we will talk with Glasgow on the Glasgow will be convening special elements of events on Saturday 6th in collaboration to nature, and obviously adaptation will also have a discussion. So a lot of cross-cutting areas, so that we will come to COP with these kind of updates and preparedness. I think that will be our strength. I'm now looking at the Q&A box or chat box. I don't see any inputs yet from our colleagues, but as we said, it's all open. This is a frank and open discussions among our partners, so feel free to intervene. So we have 20 minutes left. Let me, if you like, continue with our COP26, this time logistics. If Peter and Rohit are able to join us, to listen to us, you're more than welcome, because I'm sure that the information that is coming up will also be helpful for you, because as we said, there will be connections from your outcome, from your processes to the COP, hopefully, so that we can have these discussions together. So let's now continue with the logistics. So this is the presentation I shared, this is the chart that I shared with you a couple of days ago. You may recall, especially since June or even May, as you can see, that we have been trying to understand how the format of COP26 would look like. And the UK presidency has been sharing some information time to time. However, these were not in an official format. So all the information we are sharing with you was what we heard in specific constituency focal point meetings, or some sessions in Regional Climate Week in Latin America, or during the May and June conference. So for the first time, the UK government has released a written, at least, statement about what is their vision. It's a long document, and here in this link you can read this. It's in full details, and I think it's also being updated time to time. What we put here is to understand what exactly it means, because there are issues about obviously COVID measures in the UK, and that there are several countries who are in the, let's say, traffic light system about their entry to the UK. Obviously, there are also other countries who are also having their own measures about how to send visitors to UK. They also have certain restrictions. The way you go to UK or the way you come back is also bounded with some restrictions. This chart doesn't address that, though. This only summarizes what UK is planning to do this. And then the second point is that there is special procedures for COP26 delegations, and there are certain limitations for any visitors. And that is also making things a bit unique, because when the jargon of COP26 delegations is the ones who will be accredited to the blue zone through the UNFCCC system. And we also know that there are so many participants who are attending COPs without necessarily attending to the blue zone, not necessarily going to the negotiations. So those people who will not have any blue zone badge, first of all, will not be enjoying these privileges that UK is offering to the COP26 delegations. So the current restrictions, or what will happen in the time of COP convenes to any visitors, will apply. And that's now the difference, that UK is offering special, let's say, privileges to COP26 delegations. First of all, for the green and amber zone list, with or without vaccination, they will be able to enter to the UK. The difference for the non-blue zone or non-COP26 delegation, that only those who have acknowledged vaccinations are eligible to come to the UK without quarantine. So that is, I think, the biggest difference. Second, for those in the red list countries, which is a significant number of countries, they will be exempt, or they will be going through a quarantine for only 5 days instead of 10 days. And cost, as of today, still has to be paid by themselves, either the participant themselves or the institution they are sending it. Instead of 10 days, they will be staying for 5 days quarantine. And the interesting, or let's say the important point, that the vaccination of those red list delegations doesn't matter here. So even if you're vaccinated with or without UK, you will still have to go through 5 days quarantine if you want to go to UK through the COP26 delegations. And that second one is also interesting, because you may remember COP26, sorry, I'm correcting once again. For those who are vaccinated, will be 5 days for the COP26 blue zone delegations. This is important because UK is already rolling out a campaign for vaccination. There were nominations, there were some approved, there were quota allocated. The important point is that you all know COP26 is starting on 31st of October. According to this timeline, and knowing the procedures of the vaccinations, that you have to apply for 2 jabs, and it has to time between the first one and the second one, and then from the second one there should be an additional two weeks. So according to this plan, anyone who, especially the vaccines like AstraZeneca, which is the UK preferred or UK proposed promoted vaccinations, it has 8 weeks between 2 jabs, and it has 2 weeks after the second jab to be recognized as fully vaccinated. So if you want to enter through 5 days period, and if you want to attend the first day of the COP on the 31st of October, you should have received your vaccination yesterday. If you are following a different vaccine, they have specific differences. For example, BioNTech has 4 weeks or 2 weeks. So these are kind of things that has to be taken into consideration. You can find our updates on these, let's say, how if the discussion has evolved. Our colleague Felix have kindly updated us or shared our blogs as guest blog. Relevant deadlines from now on, what will happen? By next Tuesday, all the observers will submit their delegation nomination, let's say, dream lists. This means the number of people they want to make enter to the COP. Between 31st of August and 6th of September, UNFCCC will work on these applications, but they will also be informed by the COP presidency about what is the capacity of the blue zone, how much people can they accommodate, knowing about the limitations of those COVID restrictions. And so that while we have a dream scenario, dream list, there's also a reality, and that the final quota will primarily rely on the capacity of the blue zone. So by 6th of September, all these accredited organizations who nominated their list will receive how many quota they will get. This is by organization by organization. There are cases where several organizations might not have received any quota. There may be different numbers depending on the experience and past engagement. We also know there are new organizations being accredited. And once this quota is announced, then all these organizations will start to review their list. Obviously, the number they wish and the number they got will be different. So they have to process internally, and they will start to register or confirm those, and they will get their acknowledgement letter, and they will get this letter. They will go to the US and UK embassies to get their free UK visas for the 6-month period. Again, this will only apply for Blue Zone participants, and they will also be, according to their vaccination status, will enjoy those, let's say, privileges for COP26 delegations. Finally, on the 30th of September, UNFCCC is also managing side events. These are free of charge, and it is using the premises of the UNFCCC. They will also announce their list who will be attending. So that is the deadline. Under this condition, and we are aware, UK has also worked on the green zone applications for their UK milestones. We are also aware of pavilion applications are being now responded. So this is an estimated, like, what will be our orientation at COP26 if all goes in physical, in person. First of all, there will be differentiation between Blue Zone and the Green Zone. In the Green Zone, we hope that LGMA multi-level action pavilion will be set up. We are still working with, I will provide updates on that. This will be for 2 full weeks of our agenda, and depending on the conditions of opening and closing dates, the times of the UNFCCC or the COP26 presidency. Second, UNFCCC will continue its own process. When we mean UNFCCC, there will be negotiations going on. We will attend all these sessions, speak of possibilities, speaking intervention possibilities, interaction with the delegations, because they are the ones who are making the Glasgow package. Second is the Marrakesh partnership. As you have seen, the presidency program is in fact a combination of the political leadership of the COP presidency, but also the high-level action champions, their engagement for the Marrakesh partnership. So there will be a series of events, and this will be in the UNFCCC promises. They will have some spatial invitee list. That was the practice in the past. So even if you are not accredited through the accredited organizations to the Blue Zone, you may be able to have accreditation via Marrakesh partnership events if you are involved in one of those. And this will also extend until the end. Usually it was much shorter period. Those who are familiar with the COP process in Marrakesh, Bonn, Katowice, and Madrid, it was shortened, like the end of the first week and the beginning of the second week. Now it is across the 2 weeks, so it's a long period. This will start with a round Race to Zero and Race to Resilience dialogues, and every theme there will be local and regional governments invited, and the final day will be the Citizen Built Environment Day. Obviously, when you have a final day, the challenge is that any outcomes, it may not be so easy to intervene in the outcome. Therefore, the use of pavilion, the being engaged in the other days is as equally important as the day of the 11th of November, as we said, because the negotiators should get the feedbacks from our side or inputs from our side, so that the real COP outcomes can be fed with these ideas and suggestions. And third, in the Blue Zone, is that we have many pavilions, and this may of course change because some countries may decrease their size, or they may be canceling their pavilions because of the COVID measures, but there will be other pavilions. And that's also good, because from China pavilion to German pavilion, from Italy, from EU to Japan pavilion, we have been to NDCP partnership pavilion. We have been numerous examples of sessions. So we should also be continuing to apply for those, that especially those national associations with their national delegations should seek for additional sessions, so that the voice of cities and regions, the voice of LGM is across the every room, every hall. We see local and regional governments championing for multi-level and collaborative action. So that is the Blue Zone. How many will be there? We don't know. Then there's Green Zone. It's the UK Green Zone, which is the one event that was applied in March, and it's reviewed now. What we have heard so far, you may remember, we have a tracking sheet for LGMA. At the moment, we see very few number of events being approved. We heard from Cities Alliance, we heard from Cities and Climate Finance Leadership Alliance, We just heard LGA, I guess, and COSLA has confirmed. So a number of others may come up. The agenda is not announced yet. And it's also probably not confirmed, the full format, because probably they're in the negotiations. From ICLE side, none of our applications were approved. And I would encourage, once again, all LGA members to inform the tracking sheet so that we can track what's happening in there. And then there's the Glasgow and Scotland zone. When I say Glasgow zone, in fact, it is the whole city of Glasgow. You can think about hotels, universities, but of course, Glasgow Chamber Hall, which is the home for the City Council of Glasgow, where they will be opening the doors for all stakeholders. In the afternoon, we will hear from Duncan about their plans. The challenge is that because of the accommodation is also extended to Edinburgh, there will be also several events in Edinburgh. Therefore, we are saying that it is Glasgow and Scotland zone. So we can hear more in the afternoon with our colleagues as well. And of course, especially because of the Leader Summit at the beginning on the 1st of November, and the Season Built Environment Day on the 11th of November, and considering all these challenges of physical participation, very likely we will not think about a Cities and Regions Climate Summit in one day, but we will continue to keep as a phase approach, or let's say as a process, that there will be several moments of gatherings, and one of them could be on the 11th of November in the evening at the City Chamber Hall, with Glasgow City Chamber Hall, like a closing and with celebration with action partners and friends of multi-level action. But there may be other moments, and we would like to make sure that first, that physical and virtual presence should be open, available, and that people should not be feeling treated differently because they are not in the specific day because of all these logistical challenges, so that every participant, any moment, any day, any session, any leader, councillor, mayor, governor, city manager, environment manager, sustainability manager, resilience manager, they are welcome as appropriate, that they are equally part of the whole picture. Therefore, communication and sharing of information via LGMA pavilion, the way we will manage the agenda of this pavilion, our daily briefings, our events, and the virtual connectivity will be very, very important. I must confess, we're having extreme difficulties with the host company. The conditions they are offering are extremely difficult, and we will provide more updates, but we hope that these will be clarified soon. But I must confess, that is the hardest logistical and political preparation I've ever had in my career of the UNFCCC since 2003. So that can be an extent of the challenges you can expect. And therefore, I fully support all the and acknowledge all the applications or requests for information. But instead of misguiding anyone, we are trying to make sure that there is some clarification is available, especially with the blue zone quotas and accreditations and the conditions, especially financial conditions of the pavilion, so that we can reach out to you. Therefore, bear with us. We really, truly appreciate your flexibilities, but it is really a very difficult days that we are going through, and knowing the biodiversity and knowing, as you heard from Rohit and Peter, that the whole UN General Assembly is also turning into virtual, or let's say hybrid, because there will be some resident representatives in the UN premises in New York will be there. So in fact, it will be a hybrid like biodiversity. The extent of what is the degree of hybrid elements in the COP in Glasgow is still not clear. Whether it is a day, whether it's an event, whether it's a process, we still have to wait and see. Therefore, honestly speaking, I don't know others, but we have been extremely, as ICLE have been extremely conservative with our booking and accommodation and travel plans, especially with accommodations. We have expressed seriously our concerns to the presidency that the format they are following, which is booking for 2 full weeks and no cancellation fee, no reimbursement for cancellation, unacceptable. But unfortunately, nothing has changed. My expectation is that as soon as the COP26 Blue Zone quota is announced, which will very likely be less than what we have seen before, the hotels will also release rooms so that any new applications may be in much more favorable financial conditions. With this, I'd like to stop here. I see several inputs are coming on the chat box. It is 11 o'clock. For those who are able to attend this session, we can continue like 15 more minutes. either into the topics that we covered on COP26 politics, COP26 logistics, or the inputs or interventions delivered by Peter and Rohit. The floor is open. Let me read several inputs that has received on the Q&A session and the chat box. Ari Muhammad is asking, why is the issue of loss and damage always associated only with adaptation, even though this agenda is considered as beyond adaptation and mitigation? This means that in the loss and damage agenda, there must be commitment and ambition toward greater ambition, reduction efforts so that loss and damage can be avoided. This means that people who work on mitigation issues must be active and contribute to decisions and negotiations on this agenda. Arif, I'm really appreciating your contributions on this agenda item. We have shared that yesterday, the UK presidency shared for the first time their vision on loss and damage to the constituencies, and I will forward what was presented there. This issue came up there as well, but one of the things that loss and damage was also a taboo for a long time. There were some COPs where this was almost completely ignored. So it's good that things are coming up, and I think we should be talking about it more seriously, and I fully agree that it should be more holistic and inclusive. Romain from Climate Change Association, Ari Mohammed, sorry if I couldn't recall your institution, but sometimes I'm really confusing the names, so bear with me, but if you want, you can also introduce yourselves. Romain, I know from Climate Change Association. Hello, Yunus, it is likely that we have a smaller quota than usual. Well, it's all possible. I cannot comment. It's not in my prerogative or my authority, but the logic is that COP26 capacity would be less because of the, first of all, the physical planning, the space will not accommodate hundreds of people because there will be distance, social distancing during COP. Therefore, there will be limitations. Second, because of these travel restrictions and quarantine, there will be less people attending. That's our expectation. But how exactly it will turn into the figures, to the quotas, I don't know. We have to wait and see. We are informed yesterday from the constituency focal points meeting that there is a UNFCCC mission, which is visiting Scotland, Glasgow today and this week. There may be several, let's say, outcomes. They will either share publicly or they will keep internally. So their assessment that will be between 31st of August and 6th of September will be based on this inputs or their interactions. What we have asked once again yesterday to the constituency meeting at the constituency of the UK presidency, whether you are considering any inspirational from what has happened with biodiversity. And we have asked how many vaccines are being dispersed, how many people have received these jabs, and we told them that if you miss AstraZeneca vaccinations yesterday, you will miss the first day of COP. So if you are attending the second week of COP, you may still have one more week, but the window is narrowing down every minute. And those vaccinations, there are some, especially considering that this will be in the least developed countries or the developing countries in Africa and Asia, some of them have to travel different country to get these vaccines. So it's a huge complex issue. And if this vaccination is not as efficient as you have been asking for, we know many delegations or many countries are still not fully vaccinated their own population, and negotiators may not have received any vaccine as well. So the quota, it may be, if the number of real participants is less, the quota may be more. So the quota, which was less compared to last year, can still be more if there was no delegations attending. That we are hearing several parties saying that we will not go. It's including some NGOs, but even some national governments are also starting to speak vocally that they are not planning to attend the COP. And I really don't know what it means if it is, it will happen for the first time. It is, decision making is by unanimity or consensus. They can live without certain number of countries as long as they give approval for their country negotiators. But I think in terms of solidarity, in terms of equity, this will introduce a huge impact and concern, because those who are most affected, if they are not attending to the talks, and they will be the ones who will be suffering from what is being decided or not decided, and then the legitimacy of all this COP would be questioned as well. So let's see. And final words on that delegations. This is not an official position from ICLE, but I think there will be a certain moment in time, as you have seen in the chart, green and amber list countries have much more flexibility. They can attend or they can go to UK without any limits with these procedures. I think we should also think to ourselves, yes, this may be available as a given, let's say, opportunity for us, but if our brothers and sisters are so limited, maybe we should also question that those who have capacity, money-wise, time-wise, vaccine-wise, maybe we can also limit voluntarily that we do not flood the Glasgow halls, that when we have a meeting, it's all the same type of countries and regions, so that respecting and sharing those solidarities in these difficult moments should also be something that we can come up voluntarily. As I said, this is not an institutional proposal from ICLE yet, but we will bring this soon to the table that we can have a discussion on that. So I will read the feedbacks on the chat box again. Romain has inserted comment on the chat box. Countries, pavilions will be held presentially in the blue zone. Will it be possible to propose presentations to the LGMA pavilion? And Leo from WRI, when do you expect there will be final clarity on the LGMA program and how best for partner organizations to explore ways to engage with contribute on the program? The two questions from Leo and the last question from Romain are similar. As I said, as of today, we are still trying to figure out how will we physically ensure our presence, including the financial implications and this hybrid model. I hope there will be clarity soon. I know that I'm repeating this every webinars, but I think we're getting closer. The particular difficulty is that knowing that many events in the UK managed green zone is cancelled or not approved, the presence in the blue zone, I mean, you may have a resource as an organization, as a process, as a project, as a partner, but if you don't have delegations able to step into the blue zone, how will you be connected? Which means the virtual connections should be very clear, and it should be visibility should be much more clear. So these are the things that we have to take into account so that we do not misguide or mislead any partner and disappoint later on, both psychologically, institutionally, financially. So we would come up with some ideas in the next couple of days, hopefully, and hopefully we will be able to process, digest, and come back to us soon, so that we have an inclusive pavilion as much as possible with the spirit of LGMA. You may remember our first pavilion was in 2009 in Copenhagen. That was the local government climate lounge. It was the first blue zone non-party stakeholder lounge, and over these years we have advanced in Paris, in Bonn, in Marrakesh, in numerous sessions. We have experienced this. We have definitely a culture of building this. We have experiences in other forums like UN Habitat, World Urban Forums, or other conventions, but this time it is very difficult. As I said, we were okay with the biodiversity because we know it will be fully virtual. Here we have a difficulty organizing a session or planning for an event hybrid, that there will be some people physically present, and you would like to give the floor for those who are not physically present but through virtual mechanisms is extremely difficult, to be fair, to be inclusive, and to be as diverse as possible. So we fully acknowledge your concerns about the delays, but there are a lot of things that are beyond our decision making. And meanwhile, I can also offer this open-heartedly that if you have any ideas, feel free to share with us in the LGMA mailing list or to us the modality, the format, and also in the next day we will also open in the LGMA tracking sheet a new sheet that will try to explore which organizations are planning to do what in this LGMA orientation logic, so that we can say there will be several events in the LGMA pavilion. Some of you may have space reserved or slots reserved in other pavilions. Marrakesh we will put inside. what is going on in Green Zone, what is going on in Glasgow and Scotland Zone. We will try to give this access to you so that everyone can feed in, so that we can have a clear map of who is doing what and when, with whom at COP on behalf of LGMA. So, Malini, great to see you, Malini. For those who are not familiar, Malini is the Secretary General of Globe Legislators in the global network of legislators. And he's been also a long-time sustainability activist and a partner in this process for decades and decades. I'm very happy that she has joined our call today. I'm just reading her input in the Q&A box. Yunus, please note that the UK travel guidance is for England. Very, very important. Thank you, Malini. The devolved nations have different travel guidance. This is the guidance from Scottish government. And important to check for any discrepancy between guidance for England and Scotland. Those outside the UK may not be aware of this, so best to check. Thank you. Very, very happy, Malini, for you to highlight this. Of course, our colleagues living in the UK, living in London, living in Glasgow, their feedbacks, their guidance to us are extremely valuable. Malini just shared the Scottish and England travel guidance. And we will share this as well, including in our presentation. And I think in a couple of days, we will come back with you, with Malini, about a new initiative that is in terms of engagement of parliamentarians or legislative members of legislative bodies at the national and various multi-level levels into the UNFCCC process. And Malini is taking a lead on that, and we will be sharing with you more updates on this. Thank you, Malini. Yes, we will share the links again as well. Any points? Thank you, Malini. Yes, we are also very happy to welcome Globe and other networks of parliamentarians or legislative members of legislative bodies across the world. So we look forward to a very, very effective dialogue with you, especially in this era of climate emergency, where climate emergency declarations are instrumental for us for commitments for both NDCs, Paris Agreement, but also bottom-up initiatives of local energy governments as well. So there will be more to come on that soon. So it is one of those nice things that will be coming on the way to, at, and beyond COP26, hopefully. Good. Peter, Rohit, if you're still there, I couldn't check the screen. But if you're still there, if you want to provide any basic, let's say, last round of inputs based on what you heard from me, what you heard from the speaker questions, Rohit and Peter, if you want, you can unmute yourself and share your last rounds. Other than that, we will be closing the sessions in a couple of minutes. If not, that's also good. I see Peter has already left, so Rohit is also silent. I think we're all good. I will check with Rohit and Peter so that I can include any of their interventions in the presentation that will be wrapping up in the afternoon with the afternoon session as well. Once again, feel free to join us at 4 p.m. if you have time, because this time we will have additional, let's say, a bit different, let's say, speakers. The discussions on COP26 politics and COP26 logistics will be the same, but in between, we will have a very lively and interesting inputs and feedbacks from our partners in the UK, UK 100, HOSLA, Local Government Association, Core Cities UK, City Council of Glasgow, and Scottish Government. We're all expecting them to intervene. Obviously, we will try to give them more slots for their intervention so that our summaries will be a bit less. But again, we would like to keep this as 90 minutes so that we can still have this discussions together. With this in mind, I'd like to thank all my guests for speakers, all participants for their attendance and questions and contributions, or all the LGMA members and the LGMA community in its sense, in broader sense. Let's stay in touch and we'll keep you updated. And if you hear anything, feel free to share with us. I will share once again the COP26 tracking sheet in the Google Drive so that you can feed your inputs. And let's make sure that we are ensuring that time for multi-level action is starting at COP and beyond. Thank you and Have a nice day, have a nice evening, and look forward to our next webinars in the weeks ahead.